The Earth is flat. I'm a critical thinker.
She couldn't be serious.
It appears to me to be a stationary plane. As opposed to the vastness of infinity of space, I would find it to be an ice plane where we have a localized sun and our environment thrives there.
Where's my computer? I need to look this crap up.
The Bible is a flat earth book. You have to take it literally.
Nope, I'm done. This is ending right now. Apparently this is still actually a thing. I mean, I heard about this many years ago and thought it was just a complete joke, but apparently...
The Earth is flat.
So today, I'm gonna go ahead and join a discussion that Jubilee had between flat earthers and scientists, because this conversation needs to be put to bed once and for all. There is no reason for people to really believe that the Earth is flat with all of the indisputable evidence that is out there. I'm gonna go through a lot of it in this video because with the original conversation, the scientists didn't have enough time to talk to the flat earthers and give more irrefutable evidence. And what I'm going to be presenting is stuff that you pretty much can learn in high school, even sooner than that, and with just a simple, quick search through actual legitimate sites and sources, you can find all of this information. With all that said, let's go ahead and check out the conversation that I had with these scientists and flat earthers, because it was just a little bit different than how Jubilee presented it on their channel. Hope you guys enjoy it.
I'm Wendell Walton. I'm a Chief Learning Officer for a young startup. I am a logical, biblically based, and scientific flat earther.
I'm Shelley Lewis. I'm a graduate of West Point, critical thinker, and jumped out of airplanes.
My name is Dan Glattman. I work as Dan the Waterman in the drinking water filtration industry, and I'm a truth seeker. I'm what you call a globe denier. You could even get me into a virtual construct if I can't find the borders myself.
What are you hoping to get from the discussion with the other side?
I'd like to tear them to pieces.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I run the YouTube channel Switch 209. I have an associate's degree from community college, and my IQ and age aren't the same number. My IQ actually surpasses my age.
Round 1.
I have been oppressed by the other side.
There is a percentage of people that if they saw a YouTube video that was not within their scientific chops to refute on the face of it, would believe anything out there.
You know, these particular people have misled us on television. This is a brilliant opportunity to speak. We've been suppressed, censored by mainstream media. Alternative media is just a thing of beauty for me.
I'm hoping to be able to tell our side of the story from the inside out. So many times, flat earthers are depicted from the outside in, and I want to be able to share with others empirical data that proves the Earth is not what we've been told.
Scientific consensus is possible.
Scientific consensus is possible.
What is the question?
I don't understand the question.
Scientific consensus is possible.
Possible. Anything is possible. I mean, anything is possible. I've got a tremendous issue with consensus and peer review. I've been spending a lot of time arguing with people that argue the other side. And I found that surprisingly, consensus always wins. It was shocking to me that the group with the majority has an incredible advantage. As scientists, flat earthers, truthers, punks, we're at an incredible disadvantage. And with the discussion groups, panels, we've gone against opposition, we've opposed ourselves. Surprisingly enough, flat earth is its own worst enemy. So it's not that easy for us to come to consensus. And we find that consensus is orchestrated and not actually scientific in any way. And they're following quite a bit of the university system, what we call scientism.
Right, scientism.
Obviously is the belief in what's written, where we tend to be exploring in the field with physical properties, not theories of any kind. We're using actual measurements that are calculated not by our guidelines, but the guidelines of science as we know it.
More and more professionals are coming on board. They're starting to question their reality. So the thing of it is once you start to really take a hard look at the evidence, and you are unafraid of just standing for the truth wherever that may lead you, then people end up becoming flat earthers.
Round 2.
Religion has had an influence on my beliefs towards flat Earth. Okay, so let's just try to get this one out of the way early because I know the idea of talking about religion is quite a sensitive topic for so many different people.
No.
You are referring to Jesus, whom many billions of people do not believe, including myself.
And many more billions do.
So what?
So who's right?
Well, I mean, first off, Wendell, your argument about who is right and who is wrong has nothing to stand on. You're being exclusive to other people's beliefs as you wouldn't want people to discredit yours with how you feel about flat Earth.
We have different religious beliefs. And the up thing about it is somebody right. I'm gonna wait till the credits roll on this movie before I
Well, what you'll find in a lot of these ancient religions is they're all flat earth religions. All their cosmology goes back to being a flat earth with an enclosed system. So it's not just the Bible that teaches this. It's many different religious books.
The Bible is a flat earth book. You have to take it literally. Like, for example, in Isaiah, when it talks about how the earth is like a clay wax seal that's stamped with upturned edges, that's just not some fancy story. That's a simile. It is like.
Right, absolutely. And in Isaiah it talks about too, and I'm a Christian, he who sits upon the circle of the earth. There's a difference between a circle and a ball.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
If you look at the original Hebrew, it means disc. There's over 200 scriptures in the Bible that point to a flat earth.
The idea that you both discuss that because it is mentioned in the Bible as well as many of the other religions doesn't disprove anything definitively. I'm just going to go ahead and focus on your Bible references for a second within Christianity because it's one of the youngest, if not the youngest of the most well-known religions practices worldwide. However, this information is still relevant towards all the other religions. So I mean, back in the time when the Bible depicts its events happening, they didn't have the advances that we have today. They didn't have the access to readily available information like we do. They didn't have to spend days, weeks, months traveling around outside of their familiar lands to be able to pass information beyond as far as the eye can see. Even in those days, most didn't travel more than maybe 5 to 10 miles from where they actually lived in their lifetime. For the poor, they didn't have the means to do so and had to work hard to make a living for themselves and their families.
This is true.
And for the rich, they had castles or fortified structures that they never had to leave. If it was anybody that actually left, odds are it was either a scout that could and would get lost more often than not, and possibly a soldier that is being sent out to conquer other kingdoms and empires.
That to me is complete dishonesty.
Why do you think in so many stories, whether it be in books or movies, they say, I rule over all the land as far as the eye can see? That's because that was actually their limits at the time. There was no reason to actually go farther than that. And with that, for the wax seal simile, which you aren't actually using right, the Earth's circumference is over 24,000 miles. If you were to see even anything close to maybe 50 miles out, that's an incredibly small fraction of 1% of distance covering the Earth. So even if you were standing at 6 feet tall like me, because you were standing in one spot, rotating around 360 degrees, and equally seeing the same distance in all directions if there were no obstructions present. So of course at the time, that's what they think, that the Earth is flat, because that is just the visual they have without understanding it. But hopefully I'll get to talk more about that later.
The other thing, the point about the Bible specifically for me is, why is that one particular text the correct one? You choose to believe that, and that's fine, but there's so many other writings and so many other books, so why weren't they correct? Why is just the Bible correct?
See, this is where people are going to have a lot of fair constructive criticism because of the fact that you are stating that this particular scripture needs to be taken literally. And being that we can disprove this, it's going to open Pandora's box for you in, if this is what you believe is right and is proven wrong, then what else in the Bible is going to be able to be proven wrong as well?
Science has been trying so hard to divorce itself from the idea of a creator when God's intent was to create science to lead you to Him. You know, sometimes things seem supernatural that we are able to explain later through, science. Okay, I understand. But there are other things as well that are supernatural, that go beyond the natural, that we can only explain through believing in a creator.
It's sort of like the God of the gaps. Once, people used to believe that lightning was God's wrath and throwing these lightning bolts, but once we understood it was a natural process, God shrank a little bit more because now we couldn't attribute those lightning bolts to God. We had to attribute that to the real science.
So this could also be argued for how the Catholic religion condemned Galileo of heresy for the ideas that the church was teaching that the sun revolved around the earth, and Galileo thought otherwise. With many others believing him and him not trying to make anything of it as far as more than just being a discussion, they had forced him to no longer speak or teach the idea and placed him on house arrest for the remainder of his life. And it was only after his death that they realized that he was right and they were wrong. And that's when they stripped him of his heresy. After he died. So the Catholic Church that had their religious leaders, including the Pope, having a direct connection with God in some capacity, were apparently teaching the wrong ideas as if they were fact and wanting to silence anyone that questions them, to only realize that they were wrong after the fact when they couldn't take back the actions that they did prior to the people that doubted them, to only now strip him of his heresy and pretty much just say, oopsie, for them to pretty much get away with what otherwise would be criminal offenses, but were given a pass because of religious intent. Such as, for example, if you had a pastor that was just purging a city and doing so because God told him that was his will, and he would just face no consequences for it. This pretty much just opens Pandora's box for people to give more criticism to their teachings as something so vast and important was proven wrong. What else could be wrong? This is just simply one example. One person that was well known. Think of all those that weren't well known and what could have happened to them. Do you want to continue down this rabbit hole, or do you pretty much get it?
I completely understand where you're coming from.
This is why I dislike discussing actions done towards others inspired by religious beliefs. It's very messy. And I'm not saying this as an atheist, because I'm not an atheist myself. People wanting to believe in something is very understandable and hopefully will guide their life in the right direction. But you can't just simply refute facts or science based on hope or belief. They can actually coexist, since science isn't about disproving religion by any means, as you tried mentioning prior.
Flashback.
Science has been trying so hard to divorce itself from the idea of a creator when God's intent was to create science to lead you to him.
End of flashback.
Round 3.
What we're taught with our solar system doesn't fit with flat Earth ideals.
I'm running.
What shape would you say you think the Earth is?
It appears to me to be a stationary plane, as opposed to the vastness of infinity of space. I would find it to be an ice plane where we have a localized sun and our environment thrives there.
Okay, Dan, this is simple to understand, and I'll break it down for you in parts. First, the sun isn't local to just us.
You are absolutely right.
Take what we have been taught in school, that the sun is over 90 million miles away. With that in mind, if the Earth is flat as you say it is, and the sun rotates around our planet, for life to be able to continue to exist, what structure or obstacle do we have big enough to block the sun's light for part of the planet to be in darkness of night while the rest of it gets daylight? Why would we then need to have part of the planet put in different time zones? Even if the sun was local to just us, for the models that you guys have shown, the sun would then be contained by a type of atmosphere that would look more like an oval than a circle, making absolutely no sense for why the atmosphere would actually stretch out that far. And with the idea of atmosphere is gravity.
Show me how you isolate gravity.
Oh, I'd love to. You see, gravity couldn't exist as we know it if the Earth was actually flat. The reason is, gravity works by pulling equally in all directions toward a center mass, toward the Earth's core. And in doing so, the flat Earth as you think of it to be, wouldn't be able to just pull everything towards the surface toward the ground. It would have to actually pull from beneath it and from the sides where the edges are.
And a fact is a fact.
But that's not the case for how you guys are trying to prove the Earth is flat and how gravity works within your flat Earth system. So I made a little diagram out of paper plates just to be able to show you guys gravity's pull in the most simplest of ways possible for you to understand. For your flat Earth model, how would you then have gravity being pulled down towards the surface as greatly as it would be towards the edges? So you would be having gravity apparently pulling equally all throughout the flat Earth structure. But with the fact that you guys can actually see the bottom in so many of your guys' example pictures, there's a mass that goes down farthest in the middle and it goes thinner towards the edges. How then would gravity be pulling down equally on the edges and not have a structure underneath it compared to actually being in the middle circle of your flat Earth? Gravity pulls equally from all directions, meaning that the shape that is created is that of a sphere, a globe. And it only gets weaker as you travel away from the actual center of it. Yes, your flat Earth may have one actual center point, but then why is gravity then pulling only from one direction, pulling down towards the actual structure that you see without looking and understanding how gravity is pulling on the underside of it? Why isn't it pulling from the bottom? Also, just take into consideration, anyone that would actually be standing at the exact center of your flat earth model, by the way that you guys try to describe gravity, would actually be crushed by the force of it, if you really think about it.
It's faulty logic. It's completely faulty logic.
Actually, it's not.
Show me a globe spinning with clouds and a moon. Show me home, and I think I could shut up easily. I think I could shut up.
Gladly. Do you understand that this was taken in 1990 from the Galileo space probe as it did its first of 2 flybys of the Earth? All photos put together in order to create an actual video. And before you try to say that the clouds don't move, this was filmed from 1.3 million miles away, and as you can see, it moves even farther away as the video progresses. Cloud movement is harder to notice from such a vast distance. Also, look at South America at the beginning and at the end. Completely different cloud formations. So yes, the clouds did move. So I mean, Dan, you gonna shut up now?
Round 4.
NASA is NASA is untrustworthy, and there's too much fake evidence for the Earth not being flat.
I'm running.
No! God, please, no!
The private does not know what the general is doing. There's compartmentalization happening all the time.
Of course.
So it wouldn't be that far-fetched. Has the government ever lied to us is really the question at stake.
We all agree on that.
Yeah, but now we,
Common ground.
now we have NASA.gov, right? And absolutely, they're not lying about anything. They're completely transparent. Everything is true. We'd be foolish to
There is
think
a
that's
difference
true.
here. I'm sorry. This is a fallacy here. There is
Not
a
a fallacy.
I'm sure it is.
Go ahead.
Yes, and that's just called management. It's not their job to know what the higher-ups are doing. Even regular jobs, for an entry-level employee, they're the ones that are actually supposed to be led. And the manager oversees things getting done by everybody. It's on a need-to-know basis, so that way multiple people aren't trying to throw their opinions into the mix for what needs to be done or what doesn't need to be done. Not everyone needs to be the leader, as it would bring more chaos than order.
That, to me, is complete dishonesty. That is not true at all.
I mean, when you turn that key ignition in your car, you expect the car to start out.
And not blow up.
And not blow up, because science puts you in that position.
We're not drawing conclusions. We understand the mechanisms that made that car work. There is no theories and no disputed conclusions involved there. It's not a good analogy.
No theories? Really?
It's faulty logic. It's completely faulty logic.
Yes, there were. Plenty of ideas were theorized and tested to make the idea of starting your car safe and practical. And the results of those tests are why you have the ability to start your car today. I really think that you either don't know what a theory is, or you're trying to discredit science so much as you don't know it to be, because it may potentially actually get you from believing in flat Earth. With all the dedication you've already put into it, that I can see as being quite embarrassing.
Rocket science. This is very difficult for the majority of people to understand, and it's designed that way. And so, in a lot of ways, hiding behind rocket science is similar to religion. If you look at the Catholic Church back in the days, only we can interpret the Bible. You have to listen to what we say. So in a lot of ways, we're getting that same notion from science that says, only we can interpret what these numbers are. You just need to trust us. But then when we actually do go and test some of their equations and they don't work, does that beg the question for us to go and test it ourselves? Absolutely.
Well, we have the advantage of information today that's outside of channels 2, 4, and 7 and the few networks that are corporately owned. It's pretty easy to say YouTube isn't research, but when you spend enough time, you're picking up quite a bit.
Rocket science wasn't designed to simply exclude people from understanding it, but rather it would take someone with the right education to actually understand it.
This is true.
Nobody is trying to hide anything behind rocket science, and your idea that people are told to just believe them without a second thought is an actual fallacy, because nobody's actually trying to stop anybody from being interested in rocket science. The equal opportunity for anyone to join in that field and study is there. However, the level of scientific understanding is so much greater than what you actually learn in high school, and you have to study for years to understand the specific level needed to be a part of that actual conversation.
I'm telling you, you're wrong.
Some people may be intimidated at the idea of how much dedication is needed to understand rocket science, and that could deter people from understanding it. And to explain the nitty-gritty details fully can be incredibly exhausting and time-consuming to the point that yes, sometimes it is just easier to take the word of someone within that field of study because it would take less time for them to understand it than for you to do so with less education on the topic than they have.
We will continue to appear uneducated. I've got a tremendous issue with consensus and peer review. I've been spending a lot of time arguing with people that argue the other side. And I found that surprisingly, consensus always wins. It was shocking to me that the group with the majority has an incredible advantage. As scientists, flat earthers, truthers, punks, we're at an incredible disadvantage.
That's because those within the consensus know what they're talking about. And this isn't an issue of oppressing one side over another, but the idea of having theories be tested, understanding the results, and basing the consensus on those results. That way the truth of the matter is the foundation for the consensus.
And with the discussion groups, panels, we've gone against opposition, we've opposed ourselves. Surprisingly enough, flat Earth is its own worst enemy. So it's not that easy for us to come to consensus, and we find that consensus is orchestrated and not actually scientific in any way.
Not scientific? Then how exactly do you test your ideas? Please explain to me in detail how you do this.
And they're following quite a bit of the university system, what we call scientism.
Right, scientism.
Obviously is the belief in what's written, where we tend to be exploring in the field with physical properties, not theories of any kind. We're using actual measurements that are calculated not by our guidelines, but the guidelines of science as we know it. Bruh. Not by our guidelines, but the guidelines of science as we know it.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
Oh my. Guys, can you please just, at this point, shoot me into the sun? You're using science to test your theories. You have your own theories, which have led you to being here now. You question the norm, then you go out and test based on a theory. And maybe you're more comfortable calling it an idea that could be true if understood fully. And calculating the data to come to a conclusion. The actions that you are against, you're taking on yourselves to try to prove your own points. In science as you know it, what in the world does that mean? What, you're gonna start bending the principles of science to favor the results that you want?
It's faulty logic. It's completely faulty logic.
I agree with you. That's not even cheating the system, because at least if you're cheating it, you're following it to the end result, but you're completely changing the idea to fit your narrative to make you sound smarter to people who don't have to actually sound smart. They are smart.
NASA is not proving that the Earth is flat.
Well, they say it in 14 of the documents.
You should read what NASA says, and you should listen to what NASA
I would
says.
love to see your NASA evidence that the Earth is
it's
flat.
only their contradictory issues
Okay,
that
let's
bring
see.
us here. NASA is solely designed to change my mind. It is, from its inception, from its discovery, has been a television program, it's been a space program to sell us on something that they've yet to actually show us.
NASA was not founded to prove the Earth was a globe. It had nothing to do with the way they were founded.
Well, if you go and study
Are you sure?
Yeah, positive.
NASA's lying to you, my friend.
The other bit of proof
Not myself.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Let me sit back so that way you don't poke my eye out, Pinocchio.
One of the things I will say is NASA.gov has their own documents out there that we get to vet, which is through the Freedom of Information Act. And would you agree that NASA documents, if they're on display, that we should be able to go and research inside there?
No, you can't just feel entitled to go into NASA and start disputing their findings based on, well, I'm a flat earther and you're a part of the government.
NASA.gov.
And the government lies to us. So by default, you're lying to us. And I demand that I use your stuff to be able to prove that you're wrong. It almost sounds like you're fighting this issue, I mean, all three of you, just to be able to get a free ride into space.
As a matter of fact, all U.S. Air Force photography prior to 1958 shows a flat Earth. Only NASA shows
That's
us
not true.
That's
That is absolutely not
true,
true.
Jim. I wouldn't lie to you.
That's actually not true. Lockheed Martin developed the U-2 reconnaissance plane, and its first flight was in 1955. It flew at 70,000 feet, and despite that it was designed to take photos of enemy facilities, amongst other intelligence gathering for us, it was able to take photos of the horizon, curve and all. Afterwards, the SR-71 Blackbird was put into service in 1966, 3 years prior to the moon mission, and at its peak, its ceiling altitude was 85,000 feet. The crew on board actually had to wear spacesuits to be able to deal with the altitude that they would fly at. They also would take photos of the Earth and its curved horizon. And NASA even started using them up to 1999.
You know, my grandfather used to tell me growing up, never believe anything you read in the newspaper, right? He told that to me. Now, with the age of the internet, it's like, you know, how much of this misinformation are you getting there? And when you have like eyewitnesses taking video of something, you do have to take everything with a grain of salt. That's why, because of my my multimedia background, I knew that all that stuff could be faked. You know, take it into Photoshop, take it into After Effects. We're all familiar with the Earthrise photo, right? The Earth is rising over the moon. We're all familiar with it. That's NASA. You can go out to NASA's site, you can download the original, right?
I already know what you're going to ask.
So you bring up the luminance on it, and you can see where it's cut out and pasted there.
They're showing us doctored images that are clearly doctored. The blue marble is a very famous image from 1972. When you talk to the artist from NASA, his name is Robert Simmons, he talks about exactly how it was created from data, and it's not a photograph whatsoever. He added clouds.
Let me explain.
He added a highlight of the sun.
If you take, you know, on your phone, most phones have that panoramic image. When you do that, you're taking a series of pictures, and the phone cleverly stitches that together.
I'm just saying how it's presented. It's presented as a real
So when
photograph.
NASA takes real photos, and they either clean them up for color, or they stitch them together so it's one large image, it doesn't mean they're CGI.
You're talking about composites.
You're not taking into consideration that at the time of both the Earth rising and blue marble images being taken, that the cameras for back then can't be compared to the cameras that we use now. Even the cameras on your phones are more advanced than the ones that they used to take those photos. Those photos were taken from millions of miles away, and to be able to get the details on the clouds, continents, etc., they couldn't take them with one simple photo. They would have to zoom into specific spots, use filters depending on the lighting, and add color to post to give you an actual look of the final product. Just because it took pieces to make one large image doesn't mean that it's fake. It's literally a puzzle that was put together.
It's like we have this picture of reality that's a big puzzle.
Comparing technology from 1968 and 1972 to the present day is by no means a fair comparison. That only shows how petty and desperate you are to prove your point for the sake of wanting to be right versus actually being right.
Fact is a fact.
We have a laser retroreflector on the moon.
That we're using now.
We still use to this day.
It's sitting there.
You can find to the inch how far away the moon is.
No pictures of home.
That only is there. By the
No,
way,
there are not.
Raise your hand if you think we went to the moon.
what is the proof? Hundreds and hundreds of pounds of moon rocks and dust. And we have distributed those freely to PhD scientists around the world. And not one of those geologists have said, what is this?
Been proven to be fake.
And also and collected on the ice in Antarctica and in the Arctic as well. Those are collected. You don't have to go to the moon to get moon rock.
The moon rocks aren't fake. You can't get moon rocks from anywhere aside from the moon itself. And what is actually being collected in Antarctica are most likely just leftover meteorites that didn't burn up in our atmosphere.
So when I was 12 years old, I went to space camp and I met Alan B. Shepard.
Oh, nice.
Yep. And I wanted to be an astronaut and I wanted to be the first woman to walk the moon.
Oh.
So for me, I'm a glober. I went into this completely wanting it to be true. And my husband told me, he saw this thing about the fake moon landing. And I was like, you're absolutely crazy. There's no way that the moon landings are fake. And then in 2010, my husband was killed. And so I never really developed that until around 2014 when Flat Earth kind of came back up. And that little voice inside my head said, remember the fake moon landings? Remember when that was brought to my attention? And then I started really critically analyzing that. And I would say, just looking at that evidence, if they can lie about the moon landings, they can certainly lie about pictures and satellites and other things. And so I started going down that rabbit hole of studying. So that was my influence from my husband.
How many lies does it take to make a liar?
Shelley, I hate to say it, but I'm starting to believe that you're actually a flat earther because your late husband was, and you want to keep a connection with him alive. Being that you didn't believe in flat earth prior to his passing, and only afterwards you started actually considering it when the topic gained traction, and he used to actually believe in it, I'm sorry for your loss, but that's just how it's starting to sound.
I'm telling you, you're wrong. Okay. I have evidence.
Final round. Fight!
The Earth's horizon not being curved proves the Earth is flat over a globe.
I'm running.
We went out to an observation at Salton Sea, and things just didn't add up down there. So we've gone back probably a dozen times, and I can guarantee you that there is no curvature over distance.
That's actually easy to explain, and I've already covered it earlier as well, but I'll go into more depth here. There's never going to be a curvature from a standing point on the surface of the Earth. Like I mentioned earlier, the Earth's circumference is over 24,000 miles, and with our vision being limited to not seeing across the entire plane of your flat Earth idea, if we could see 10, 20, 50 miles out, we still wouldn't be able to see a small fraction of the surface of the Earth. Our equivalent may be being the size of a point of a pen standing on the surface of a ball the size of a monster truck tire, but it still may need to be a bigger size ball. But let's go ahead and look at your Salton Sea example. If you look true north, for example, you see the horizon as flat, correct?
I completely understand where you're coming from.
And what you're expecting to see is it to actually curve towards your peripheral view, correct?
Absolutely, they're not lying about anything. They're completely transparent. Everything is true.
If you immediately turn in any other direction at the same level of view, not looking any higher or lower in depth, say turning to face west, what happens to the horizon? It stays flat. And if you turn again to the south, same level plane view, then east, then back north, every degree within the 360-degree circle was flat. So the idea for the Earth to be a globe based on seeing a curve is
Faulty logic. It's completely faulty logic.
right. Because if the idea of a visible curve was true, when you would turn in any particular direction with the same plane of view, you would then need to see a bend in the horizon. So for example, if you're looking right here and you see a bend, when you look over here, you would need to see a bend over here to where the horizon would not actually be flat. However, you don't. Do you expect the horizon to just look like a giant wave when turning around in a circle just based on the idea of it being a globe and curving?
I'm telling you, you're wrong. I have evidence.
I hope you do actually have some evidence, because it's starting to kind of sound like
We've got all this, like, evidence.
and unlike you, I actually I have receipts. I have lots of receipts for all the things that I'm saying. So, you know, everything is actually backed up, not just by my thought process, but by actual. I mean, look at how many receipts I have. I have lots of receipts, and it's looking like you don't.
You're absolutely right. Okay.
I have evidence that proves it's flat.
What type
or
of
proves
evidence?
It's not a ball.
What type
Curvature, I
of?
just-
We're being misled. We're being deliberately misled by mainstream
Now,
media.
what's your evidence? You're
We see
thinking?
too far. We see too far.
You what?
You see too far. Are you kidding me? That's your evidence. You see too far.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
I live in Dana Point.
Okay.
I can see San Clemente Island, which is 60 miles away.
So what?
What do you mean, so what?
Oh, I'm
It's
on the
1,100
beach. I'm
feet
on
tall.
the beach.
It is
What do you mean by
tall.
so what?
I'm on the beach.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna go ahead and correct him. It's actually not 1,100 feet. It's nearly 2,000 feet. And looking at the exact same photo, what you're actually looking at is the peak of Mount Thirst, the highest point on the island.
Let's talk about the ship that goes
Yes.
over the curvature
Okay.
of the Earth. I love
So-
that. So science has said that when I see a ship go out of my field of view, it's going over the curvature of the Earth, correct?
Yes.
But then I bring my P900 up, and guess what? I can zoom it back in.
Not
So
all
is
the
it
time.
going over the curvature of the Earth or
can't.
not?
absolutely.
Oh, not all the
No, you
time?
can't.
Not
No,
all the
no,
time?
no, you don't see all the ship. The bottom part of the ship
Yes.
is hidden by the
At that
curvature.
distance, you shouldn't see the top
At
of it
all.
either.
The equation for understanding the curves above my expertise. However, feel free to plug in the numbers for yourself, and it'll support the idea for why you can barely see the top of a 2,000-foot island from 60 miles away. And for the ship going over the curve, you never specified how far away the ship actually is. You assuming it to be 60 miles away too? No ship is over 2,000 feet. To have one be that tall and to be able to balance on the ocean's waves, especially in a storm, that ship would dwarf any ship in existence. Literally any ship. It would be miles long and at least a mile wide to counter the height and the weight of being 2,000 feet tall.
If the Earth were truly flat, there would be really hardly any limit. You'd be able to stand at the top of the Empire State Building and look towards Chicago, a mere 1,000 miles away, and see the lights of Chicago at night.
No,
Why wouldn't
no, because
you?
you have an atmospheric disturbance.
Very thick.
Dan, dude, the only thing thick seems to be your skull. Since you're only defending her point because you're both flat earthers, but your point literally makes no sense. Do you know why it gets colder the higher in altitude? It's because the air is thinner. Let's go ahead and get really technical for a second. This is all stuff that you can learn in high school. Atoms moving at high speeds, where there is a substantial amount of them, helps to create heat and would be where it's actually thick. And that's where you actually get closer to the ground within the atmosphere.
I completely understand where you're coming from.
As you actually go up, the thinner it gets. The less of the atoms colliding, meaning less heat, not thick. And yes, if the Earth has no curve, you could then look out and see the lights of Chicago from the Empire State Building. But you can't. I challenge anybody to take a picture of the lights of Chicago with any kind of telescope from the Empire State Building. It's not possible. No one will ever do it without actually having a telescope bend around the Earth's curve as well to be able to take that photo. Also, the idea that you brought up the atmosphere helps solidify the idea of gravity, which then helps debunk the idea of flat Earth.
Show me how you isolate gravity. If gravity is an assumption, show me in the scientific method how you isolate gravity.
There you go. But like I said before, gravity isn't exclusive from which direction it pulls towards the center point. It actually is incredibly inclusive with what it would pull in all directions equally.
This is true.
Doing that and having all masses come together would create a spherical shape, not a flat one. So again, the idea of you talking about atmosphere and gravity goes against your flat Earth idea altogether. While we're on the subject of flat Earth, why haven't there been any pictures of the edges of the Earth? No videos of anyone actually walking up to it, no reports of any ships just going over the edge, and especially the idea of no photos from space to show all of Earth flat in one photo, and especially nothing real showing the other side. So as we were talking about earlier with you guys talking about the atmosphere with the sun being included and gravity pulling down towards the actual flat Earth, why is there nothing showing this side, the underside? Why is it that we have no pictures of the underside of Earth at all?
You are absolutely right.
With all of our time that we spent in space over the years, why is there no photo of anything depicting the underside of flat Earth? Because if it's flat, it should have the effect of like a coin. There's two sides to it. You should be able to see the inclusiveness of all of the continents, the ocean, and apparently from what Dan thinks, the ice plane edges, and you should also be able to see the underside of the Earth.
I completely understand where you're coming from.
And apparently on that side of the Earth, gravity has no effect on it whatsoever. You know, the rocky underside of the planet that apparently only Earth has and no other planets in our solar system, or even any system, have it all. Only unique to Earth, apparently, within the entire vastness of the universe. Why is every photo of flat Earth a drawing, a computer rendered picture, not an actual photograph taken from space? With today's age of not only America having a space program, there's a space program within all major countries around the globe, and none of them have any evidence, findings, and especially don't have as many flat earthers as America does, because giving freedom of speech includes giving people the freedom to literally just having any thought be talked on, even ones that make absolutely no logical, reasonable, or realistic sense whatsoever. Just because you have a thought, it doesn't mean that it should actually be spoken out loud.
The next time you have a thought, let it go.
Hell, everyone's been into fads before. My generation is about Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards. The upcoming generation had slime, and you guys have flat Earth. We've all had our moments, but eventually it ends and you move on in life and do better. Why is it that flat Earth believers want NASA to prove for them that the Earth is flat, instead of pulling all of your collective resources and sending someone yourselves into space to see the results for yourselves? You could even send a balloon to the edge of the atmosphere and see for yourself that the Earth isn't flat, and try to actually have it fly over the other side of the planet to get actual tangible evidence that there is another side to the planet, the rocky side, that has apparently never been photographed whatsoever. Cameras have been put onto rockets going into space, facing Earth, showing that leaving the planet that there is an actual curve when looking at the planet as a whole, to where you can't see all the continents in one particular point. That as the globe rotates, only then are you actually able to see all the continents, not in one particular photo, unless you were to stretch out a map of the planet. But as a sphere, as it rotates, you will eventually see all the continents. Unfortunately, no photographs can ever be taken legitimately of all continents and the oceans with the ice plane in one photo. And Dan, don't worry, this actually includes modern cameras being put onto rockets, so you don't have to worry about them being doctored. Anybody have final thoughts they wish to share?
Finish him! Finish her!
Show me a globe spinning with clouds and a moon. Show me home. And I think I could shut up easily. I think I could shut up.
Nobody wants to be a flat earther, but if you showed me incontrovertible evidence, I would definitely go back. Who wants the ridicule?
You see this one? Go ahead, take it. And you will hopefully finally see everything that you wanted to understand about the earth not being flat. Granted, not all of reality is amazing. Dudes simping over social media girls? Damn. Women going to school to learn to be gold diggers? Fuck. TikTok is this. Regardless of all that, it's better than believing that the earth is flat. I promise you. Yeah, even with that, I promise you it is.
Don't believe anything that I've said.
We don't believe you. Haven't since the start.
You got to do your own research. And I think what you'll find is that you'll see that a puzzle piece doesn't fit. And the only way you're going to do that is if you put your own eyeballs on it.
Oh, I did. I didn't have to do more than maybe like 20 minutes worth to be able to prove your arguments wrong, aside from just thinking logically, reasonably, and realistically about the topic as a whole. I hope that one day, someday in the future, you all will be able to join the rest of us on Earth and to see the truth for what it actually is.
Flawless victory. Fatality.
I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a lot of fun to make, and the original video, again, is going to be in the description for any of you guys that want to check it out for yourselves, because yes, despite that this was a parody on the original video, the ideas that I brought up are still valid points to take into consideration. Thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Stay safe and take care.